Hi, I'm Cat Coloring and welcome back to my channel for another video. Now, if you're new to my channel, perhaps you haven't seen all of my playlists. I have a lot of playlists on my channel. How to color, Ellie Mark's coloring books, Johanna Basford coloring books, Hannah Carlson coloring books, Maria Trolle coloring books, reviews, beginner tutorials, and a lot of other stuff. One of those playlists is called Colored Pencils Comparisons. Now, I did 2 videos of colored pencils comparisons last autumn, and then I just threw myself at a lot of other projects. So I haven't been able to do as many as I want to, but this video is such a video, a colored pencil comparison. So a colored pencil comparison video is not a typical review and not an unboxing and swatching and so on. It's actually where I compare 2 different brands of coloring pencils with each other. And I have made one with Prismacolor Premier pencils versus Caran d'Ache Luminance pencils. And I also made a Faber-Castell Polychromos pencils versus Staedtler Ergosoft. Prismacolor Premier and Luminance are actually 2 wax-based pencils, so that was all right. But the Faber-Castell Polychromos are oil-based, and the Staedtler Ergosoft are wax-based. So perhaps it was a bit unfair to Staedtler Ergosoft to do that comparison, but it was interesting, actually. So now I thought that I wanted to do another one, but this time with 2 brands of oil-based pencils. And of course, the Faber-Castell Polychromos, I have them here, and the Koh-I-Noor from Hartmouth. I don't know how many people are using Koh-I-Noor. I just found them by coincidence a couple of years ago, and then I wanted them for, I think it was for Christmas or my birthday. Well, I got them, and I must say, when I first started coloring with these, I used them for about 6 months, and only these pencils, not anything else, because the colors are really wonderful. So perhaps one day I will actually do a review of these. As you can see here, when I open it, some of the pencils are missing. Those are the pencils I'm going to be using. But if I remove this tray and show you the rest of the pencils, you can clearly see here, especially amongst the greens, that I have used a lot of these pencils. A lot, not so much of the brown ones, but especially the green ones. I haven't been able to find a place where I can buy them open stock, so I am not quite sure what will happen when I have used them all up. Well, anyway, so I am going to make this coloring pencil comparison. And these 2 pencil brands are, as I said before, they are oil-based, so this will be a fair comparison, I think. So I want to compare these coloring pencils, and I'm going to do so not just by looking at them, that would be weird, but I'm going to use Secret Garden. This is another Danish edition of it. And I have chosen this page, and now I have done, I think we need a bit more light here. Now I have done what I usually never do in my coloring books. I have divided the page into 2 by using my ruler and then drawing with just a normal pencil a straight line down the middle of this drawing. And you can also see that up here I have written a colored pencil comparison, and down here I have written Faber-Castell Polychromos, and down here Koh-I-Noor. So that of course means that this part of the page is going to be colored with the Polychromos, and this part of the page with the Koh-I-Noor. And then we will have half a drawing with one brand, half a drawing with another brand. So I have looked at all of the colors, and I have chosen and actually tested the colors that are a match, because I can't just color this one yellow and then red over here. I have to use similar colors from the pencils so that the comparison will be fair, so that we can see the shine of the colors, how much they how many layers it has to take, how much they cover the paper, and how much shine and how much they pop off the page. So to decide this, I have chosen some colors, and you can see here I have chosen greens and some blues and purples, and then the black. So I will, of course, before I start color, tell you more about the colors, but you can see here that I have tested the pencils opposite each other to check out the colors, and also some of the colors I had to ditch, actually, because they weren't a good match. But those I found were actually a good match. I can already say that the pink Meadow Lake did not match the French pink. It was another color. So let's get started. Okay, so first I am going to color the background. And for the background, I'm going to be using 2 colors. And these colors here are the Faber-Castell Polychromos. And I'm going to be using the Ultramarine number 120 and the light Ultramarine number 140. Actually, the light shines so much, so I have to turn it to see the number. So these 2 colors actually match 2 of the Koh-I-Noor colors. So the Ultramarine matches, and this is perhaps a bit weird, but it actually matches the Cobalt blue number 230 from the Koh-I-Noor set. And the light Ultramarine blue matches the Mountain blue number 250 from the Koh-I-Noor set. And I will just show you here on my paper that I tested the light Ultramarine and the Mountain blue. And the Mountain blue is perhaps a little shade darker, but not much. And the Ultramarine and the Cobalt blue, the same. They are actually a really good match here on this paper. So I'm going to be coloring the background. So over here with the Ultramarine and light Ultramarine, and here with the Mountain blue and Cobalt blue. And I will just color and speed up the process, and can listen to some music, and then we will look at and see the result. So the background has gotten one layer now of both the Polychromos and the Koh-I-Noor. And if I take this up a bit nearer to the camera, you can clearly see that we can see a lot of the white of the paper. I didn't press hard. I had a very light pressure on the pencils. And you can see here the second layer of the Koh-I-Noor covers a lot more, and it's like when I have added the first layer of the Koh-I-Noor, the first layer, they are a bit scratchy, but the second layer is much easier to apply with the Koh-I-Noor. It's like the first layer has laid out some sort of a bottom and on the paper, and then it just gets easier to lay down the color when the first layer is there, and the second layer covers a lot more of the white of the paper. So the Koh-I-Noor works best with at least one layer. The second layer works a lot better than the first, and the Polychromos works already with the first layer. They are easy to apply to this paper if we just concentrate on this area. I just lay down a second layer of this light ultramarine, and it's so easy, even easier than the first layer, which was also quite easy, I might add. And we can also see here that the second layer of the Polychromos covers a lot more. So these oil-based pencils both work best with at least two layers, probably a third layer, I think, to cover it, the white of the paper in this book. And the Polychromos, very easy to lay down on this paper. The Koh-I-Noor, the first layer, is actually not very easy to lay down. The pencil is hard and it scratches on the paper, and it doesn't cover as much of the white of the paper as the Polychromos does. You can see here, there's a lot of white of the paper, and down here, the Polychromos it's not as white as this area. So the Polychromos color seems to cover better already in the first layer than the Koh-I-Noor. It's easier to lay down, but when you get to the second layer, the Koh-I-Noor are also easier to lay down when they have this surface with the color already. It gets easier to lay them down on the paper. Well, that was interesting, but I think I will just color this, and then I will tell you how many layers it took to cover this background completely before we move on to the green and the pink and purple colors. As you can see, I have colored the background now, and I just wanted to tell you that I gave it 3 layers of the Polychromos and 3 layers of the Koh-I-Noor, and I pressed just a little bit harder just to get some color on it. I wanted to see how the pencils reacted. And as you can see, well, it covers the paper quite well, both of the pencils. And you can also see that there is a bit of a difference with the color. It's like the Polychromos is just a little bit brighter. But let's see how it looks when we color the leaves and the flowers. Okay, so some of the leaves I'm going to be coloring, and it will be these, the smaller leaves are going to be colored with a dark and a light color. So if we take the Polychromos first, the first color is Permanent Green Olive, number 167. And the equivalent to this in the Koh-I-Noor set is the Avocado Green, number 389. So Avocado Green and Permanent Green Olive. And the lighter colors, well, it's the May Green here, number 170 from the Polychromos. And the equivalent in the Koh-I-Noor set is the Apple Green, number 210. So let's see how these colors work. And I think that I will start over here with the Polychromos. And I have an idea that I wanted to use them for these leaves. So I will just take the permanent green olive and just to lay down some color, and then the May green. And this is very typical of the Polychromos pencils in the books by Johanna Basford, that they lay down very nicely in these books. It's like the Polychromos were made for Johanna Basford books. You don't have to add a lot of pressure. You can see it lay down beautifully. You can also try here. Very, very nicely. those were the smaller leaves. So the larger leaves are going to be colored with 2 new different colors from the Polychromos, the permanent green 266. And the equivalent of that in the Koh-I-Noor set is the Meadow green number 250. So this is, I have to say, just a little bit brighter in the color, but it was the closest match. So I have still chosen these two. The light color is going to be, I can't even see it here, the grass green number 166 from the Polychromos, and the equivalent of that in the Koh-I-Noor set is the light green number 279. So let's see how these go together. I usually color these sort of leaves very dark, but I think that today I want to color them very light and bright. And you could also see that the background is quite dark there, so it's good to have some very light leaves here. And if we just begin with the Koh-I-Noors, we can see that the light green here, the lightest color, we just laid down here and here. And perhaps you can hear it. You can hear these easier against the paper. Not that it's necessarily a bad thing compared to the Polychromos. So we just take the Meadow green here and sort of frame it in. I'm only giving it a light layer because there's no reason for this video to be 3 hours long. I just wanted to do another leaf. If you can listen. They are just louder, the Koh-I-Noor pencils, against the paper than the Polychromos. The Polychromos are more discreet and the Koh-I-Noor more noisy against the paper. But that's also perhaps because the core here in the Koh-I-Noor are harder than the core here in the Polychromos. This is a softer pencil than the Koh-I-Noor. Perhaps that's why it's a bit more noisy. And it feels scratchy against the paper. I think it's the noise, because it's not scratchy at all when you lay down the color. It's just more noisy because of this harder lead. Well, I will just give it a layer to music. So before we move on with the colored pencil comparison, please consider this. Is this video interesting? Is it useful? Does it help you try to decide whether or not you would like oil-based pencils, and perhaps whether or not you would like Polychromos or Koh-I-Noor? Then like this video, and please consider subscribing to my channel for more videos like this. I really appreciate your support. Thank you. As you can see, I have added one more layer to the leaves, and it actually turned out quite well. So now it's time for the big flowers. And they will be colored with the Blue Violet 137 from the Faber-Castell. And the equivalent of that from the Koh-I-Noor is the Bluish Violet 160. Then I will be using Manganese Violet 160 from the Polychromos. And the dark Lavender Violet 230 from the Koh-I-Noor. And the last color, Crimson 134 from the Polychromos. And the Reddish Violet, oh, and funny, this is also number 230 from the Koh-I-Noor. That's a bit weird that two of the pencils have the same number, Reddish Violet and Dark Lavender Violet. Okay, that doesn't make any sense. Well, it doesn't matter, because now we're going to be coloring these, and these three colors are actually darker colors. The Reddish Violet is, or Crimson, is the lightest of these colors. So I think that we will just start with the Blue Violet down here. So we have a very dark bottom, sort of these. And then we could add another layer, but not press quite as hard. And then we have sort of laid some sort of a bottom, and then the Manganese Violet. I add a lot of pressure here, or more pressure than I normally would, to get a good layer of color here and also up here. And I must say that the Polychromos set, they work fine, both when you add a thin layer of color, but also when you just press a little bit harder, they actually give a lot of color. So you don't have to add more than one layer if you add a bit more pressure with these pencils in this book. So that was the Manganese Violet, and then the Blue Violet again here. And again a bit more pressure here. And finally the Crimson. And here I just use a normal pressure. Not too light, not too hard. And it lays down the color very well. I think I want to do something else with the edge here around the flowers, perhaps some sort of glitter gel pen. But turns out nicely. So let's try to do the opposite flower and see how the Koh-I-Noor goes down. So the Bluish Violet here. And again, one layer is more than enough if you press just a little bit harder, and then easing the pressure here. And the Koh-I-Noor are actually very nice. They sharpen to a very pointy tip here on the pencils, and if so long as you don't press too hard, they will be just fine. And the dark lavender violet here, and we can see here that this one is not quite the same as the manganese violet. There's a difference in the color. It's darker and has more blue in the color. As the manganese violet, it has more red in the color. But as I said, it is really, really, really difficult to match colors completely. And when I tried it on the paper, you can see it here, they actually look quite alike. So, well, we will, and there you can see I just pressed a bit too hard and then the tip broke. So it could be a good thing not to sharpen the Koh-I-Noors too much. But besides the fact that they are a bit more noisy when you color with them, and there is some pencil dust here on this paper, they are actually also quite easy to lay down on the paper. Not as easy as the Polychromos, but you still get a very good coverage with these pencils here. So let's try the reddish violet on this, the equivalent of the crimson here. And you can see here and this is just a normal pencil pressure, not light, not too hard. And it does lay down very nicely on the paper. But the color isn't as bright again as the Polychromos. Is just brighter. This one is more how can we put it, more pale in the color. I mean, there is a lot of color here, but it doesn't pop off the page as the Polychromos does. It really doesn't. It's like it's not as pigmented as the Polychromos is. So I will just take the bluish violet and just to and there you go. So sharpen these, but not too much, or else the tip will simply break off. I think that the blue violet and the bluish violet are very much alike, the same color. But the manganese violet has more red in it, and the dark lavender violet has more blue in it. And the crimson has more pigment than the reddish violet. It's simply not powerful enough, as we can see here clearly. So these other flowers here are going to be colored with the light red violet 135 from the Polychromos and the light purple pink. And I actually still can't see the number. It's something with 120 something, because my dog chewed at this when he was a puppy. Very naughty little puppy. He's a boxer. They are so happy. And if they find a coloring pencil, you know, just lying there, they think that, oh, that's nice, I can chew on it. So the light red violet is the same color as the lilac violet, again 230. Why are all of these colors 230 from the Koh-I-Noor set? That is so weird. And the light purple pink matches the French pink 270 from the Koh-I-Noor set. It's really, really strange about that 230 number. Well, let's start here. We take the light red violet. It's a color almost similar to the crimson, but it is a bit duller, I think, in the color. It's not quite as bright. So I will just, and if you can hear strange noises in the background, it's my dog trying to sleep next to the door and scratching on it with his paws, because his paws always have to be straight up in the air when he's asleep. And then he begins to run in his sleep. You can see here a bit darker and duller than the crimson. So I think that we just add this color, the light purple pink, and color the rest of it with that. Or perhaps I should color all of this. I think that all of this with the light red violet. Yeah? You can try one down here. And then the light purple pink. And you can see covers, covers, covers. Great. So let's Let's see how the Koh-I-Noor performs here. So we take the lilac violet and put it down here. One layer, normal pressure. And it covers. So actually I think that the coverage from the Polychromos to the Koh-I-Noor, it's actually the same. These oil-based pencils are very good to cover the paper with just one layer and normal pressure. So let's try the French pink. And that was a good match. The light purple pink and the French pink, a really good match. So as for coverage, it's the same. These oil-based pencils cover with normal pressure one layer very nicely. So I will just color the rest to music, and then we will conclude this colored pencil comparison. So now that the coloring is completely finished, let's really compare these pencils. So both oil-based pencils and both pencil brands laying down beautifully and very nicely here on the page. As I said before, earlier in the video, the background was colored in with 3 layers. The first one very light, but as soon as you actually add a bit of pressure, both pencils or pencil brands lay down very beautifully on the page. The leaves were colored with 2 layers and the flowers actually only with 1 layer and normal pressure, and you can see here that the color comes down so nicely on the paper. So they are easy, both pencils are easy to get down on the paper, and they also blend very, very nicely here on the page. The colors, well, as soon as I had added the first layer, I erased this line that I initially drew with a normal pencil, so it, well, wouldn't disturb the finished coloring, of course. And you can see here the Polychromos side. I actually think that both the Ultramarine and the Cobalt blue here, both of these dark blue colors are very pigmented, and they are actually quite similar in the color. So you can hardly see the difference from one side to the other. The light ultramarine, on the other hand, and the mountain blue here, can clearly see that the ultramarine is more bright and more pigmented in the color than the mountain blue. The mountain blue is simply a bit, it's difficult to say dull, because I don't think it's a dull color, but I think you know what I mean when I say it's a bit more faint. It's simply not as bright and pigmented as the equivalent here with the Polychromos set. On the other hand, we have these leaves colored with a grass green and light green. And these 2 light green colors are both very pigmented and very bright. You can also see here that with the darker leaves, the light color I used here was apple green. Over here it was May green, and the apple green is actually just a bit more bright and pigmented than the May green from the Polychromos set. So some of the Polychromos colors are very bright, very pigmented, but you can also find Koh-I-Noor pencils that are very bright and more pigmented than the Polychromos. So to say and conclude that the Polychromos are just more pigmented than the Koh-I-Noor, I don't think that would be fair to the Koh-I-Noor, because I do think that a lot of these have enough pigment and brightness in them, but it is difficult to match a complete match and match with the colors from different pencil brands. You could also see here with these purple colors that the blue violet and the bluish violet, they are similar in color and both very pigmented and very full in the color. You can see here that the manganese violet, it's more red in the tones than the dark lavender violet, but it's not because that the dark lavender violet is a not as good a color to use than the manganese violet. This just had more blue tones in it, and this had more red tones. If we go to the crimson and the reddish violet, yes, the crimson is a bit more pigmented and bright than the reddish violet, but again, it's a bit difficult to match the colors. If we look at the smaller flowers, the light purple pink and the French pink were a complete match, both in brightness and in colorfulness here, and they were alike. And that also goes for the lilac violet, which was this color, and the light red violet here from the Polychromos set. It's a great match between these colors, and you cannot say that the Polychromos is more bright here than these colors. The only thing that you notice when you color with them is that the Polychromos are a bit more soft to use and perhaps a little easier to blend with. than the Koh-I-Noor pencils. The Koh-I-Noor pencils has it has a harder lead in it. It's simply harder to color with, and it's a bit more noisy when you color with it. It makes this scratchy noise. So in the beginning I thought that they were scratchy, but it's actually the noise, because they also lay down, even though the lead is a bit harder than the Polychromos. But if we really have to compare, we also have to compare the price. Now in Denmark, where I live, I can get both coloring pencil brands. If I buy the Koh-I-Noor, they come in a 72 tin box, so 72 pencils, and on sale they cost about 400 kroner, but the normal price is about 600 kroner. So that means that on sale in US dollars, that would be about $58 on sale, and the normal price would be about $87. The Faber-Castell, on the other hand, are quite more expensive in Denmark. I imagine that they also are in other countries. If I bought the 60 set, that means 60 coloring pencils, not 72, but 60. So fewer coloring pencils, 12 fewer than the Koh-I-Noor set. The normal price in Denmark is 900 kroner. That's about 131 US dollars. So they are quite more expensive. So I would say, if you haven't got any oil-based pencils and you think that, well, I want to try them, I would actually recommend the Koh-I-Noor coloring pencils, because they are a very good budget brand of coloring pencils that are oil-based compared to the Polychromos. I mean, Polychromos, they are great, but they are also very expensive. So if you want to use oil-based pencils, the Koh-I-Noor is a very, very good alternative, and also much cheaper. And they have some very, very nice colors. And also some colors that you actually don't find in the Polychromos set. Well, that was it for today. I hope that you enjoyed and got something out of this colored pencil comparison. More will be coming on my channel. Amongst other things, we have to compare the Prismacolor coloring pencils and the Black Widow coloring pencils. So that was it for now. Please like and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. I really appreciate your support. Have a nice day. Happy coloring. Bye.